Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass. Thank you for watching today's Ag Forecast, brought to you by Agrible, your premier platform for real-time global insights. Let's take a look at how things finished up at the end of last week. One of the big features we discussed in Thursday's video was that we're going to be seeing the establishment of this stationary boundary that's going to be moving basically through parts of Kansas, part of southern Iowa, northern Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, right in through this area. On the northern side of this, we had much cooler than average air, and on the southern side, it was like it was summer, very, very warm conditions, which means that in this area where we're planting a lot of corn and soybeans, we accumulated a lot of growing degree units over the last few days, whereas to the north of that boundary, we did not accumulate much at all. In fact, on some days, none at all. In fact, last Friday from central Illinois to the southern Wisconsin border there with Illinois, we had a 40+ degree drop in temperatures. Now, because that boundary set up in that area, look at where our heavy precipitation was located. It was right along that boundary. Our states that are currently delayed with their planting, South Dakota, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, those are the areas where we have been delayed in planting because it's been too cold in April, and now it's been quite wet through the beginning of May. So we got to watch those areas very closely in the coming days in our forecast. Now, before we go on to our next map, I want to point out these storms right down here, especially these storms just to the southeast of Amarillo. You see, these storms were quite interesting because they formed on the top of wildfires. Here we are looking south and east of Amarillo, Texas, and you're looking at a picture taken by Joshua James. He put this picture out on Twitter so we could all use it, so check it out. It's a beautiful picture. Fires putting up smoke, heat from the fires causing the air in the atmosphere to rise, and it blew up into this thunderstorm sitting on top of it, and we can even see it from space right here. Amazing to watch these huge pyrocumulus clouds put out precipitation, put out a big thunderstorm anvil cloud spreading across, parts of Oklahoma and Texas there. I just wanted to show you some of the really cool stuff that we saw at the end of the week last week. A lot of very interesting but severe weather. Okay, what's our pattern setting up? Overnight Saturday into Sunday morning, most of our thunderstorm and shower activity was focused right into this area, with another round coming through on Sunday through parts of Iowa into Illinois. But the big thing to watch is this spin setting up here out west. Now, all that blue and green blob you saw come in there, that's all bugs at the end of this run. But if we just take this back to midday on Sunday, watch the storms move through parts of northern Illinois into Indiana. We're going to talk about this feature down south, and again, this big area of cyclonic, that's counterclockwise spin out west. That's our setup. And here's what I want you to watch. You see, this is an animation where I'm looking at what's called vorticity, that spin in the atmosphere. Basically, wherever you have positive spin, that's cyclonic spin or counterclockwise spin, we can lift air. And here's the setup. You see, for a lot of storm chasers, they've been waiting for this pattern to really set up. Lots of persistent troughing in the Four Corners region. And this is what this means meteorologically. This is the dynamics of it. With a broader trough feature sitting over here, and that's all sitting on this upper level low, we will be bringing in quite a bit of warmth into the Corn Belt, and that's simply because a ridge is going to allow quite a bit of warmth to pump up in this direction. But this brings in a whole lot of upper level support kind of under this ridge over toward that trough, that main trough of basically all the ingredients we need to make thunderstorms. And the atmosphere is going to get juicy, and it is going to pop. In fact, to show you what this is going to look like, check out temperatures first here. You see, by the time we get into the day on Monday, we are going to be seeing 90-degree temperatures spreading all the way from the Gulf of Mexico up in Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, and of course Kentucky and Tennessee, getting back down to Mississippi, Alabama. We'll also see over here in the Piedmont, the Atlantic Coastal Plain, from Virginia through the Carolinas, 90-degree weather, and it's going to be hot down in Texas as well. As we get into Tuesday, watch the northern plains rebound in temperatures. That ridge moves north, warms up there, stays warm Tuesday into Wednesday. Here's Thursday. Friday's where things start to get interesting. We're going to be watching a low pressure system kind of emerge out of the Rocky Mountains. That's going to be basically forming on this broader trough feature. Got a little shortwave coming around that trough, bringing a warm front that's going to stretch right in through this area. So you can see north of it, our temperature is going to start to cool down a little bit. We'll be able to get 50s and 60s through parts of Montana and Wyoming. In fact, on Saturday, some cooler weather spreading again across the northern parts of the Corn Belt, but not dropping off back down into the 40s for high temperatures. We're going to be at least up in the 50s and 60s. Now, just to show you how stormy the next 10 days are going to be, this is an animation showing you convective available potential energy. This is basically the atmosphere telling you where it can pop and make thunderstorms. I color code the areas where the atmosphere is destabilized. As we work through Monday into Tuesday and throughout the rest of this week, what you see here is that the atmosphere, because of that ridge with the permanent kind of or semi-permanent trough out for the west, we're going to get conditions that are going to be just perfect for making lots and lots of thunderstorms. They're going to extend all the way from the dry line, which kind of stretches from parts of Colorado, Nebraska, Kansas, Oklahoma, down into Texas, all the way through the eastern part of the Corn Belt. So very, very active next 10 days. Now, can I pinpoint the exact location of every thunderstorm for the next 10 days? I can't, but I can give you a pretty good idea on what to expect. So let's start this off getting through the day on Monday. Now, early Monday morning, we're going to be watching for storms firing again where they have been forming. That's eastern Iowa, southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, getting over to Michigan, and parts of Indiana and Ohio. As we continue throughout the day, we see that some stronger storms might be moving through parts of northern Indiana, northern Illinois, into Ohio and southern Michigan again. We're not 100% sure on exactly if this is going to look like a squall line that you see here, but expect some showers and storms through midday on Monday. Now, getting through the end of the day on Monday, look where the storms show up again. This is 5 p.m. We're watching for them to resurge again in parts of Nebraska, parts of Missouri, Iowa, and northern Illinois again. And here we go through the evening hours. Now, once we get into the evening hours, we can really see it's along this boundary right into here where we have most of our thunderstorm activity. Watch this section right into here, parts of southern Iowa, northern Missouri. You see, the models are attempting to blow up this rather large squall line. And I got to admit that there's a little bit of uncertainty in exactly how this squall line forms overnight, because it will certainly be nocturnal, and of course it will be overnight, and it'll be elevated. But do see this, storms through northern Illinois, storms through Michigan. They're going to move through parts of Indiana and Ohio as I continue to press play through the day on Tuesday. We are watching a tropical system. We're going to have to discuss that in a few minutes. And toward the end of this, you even see some storms moving through parts of Montana, getting into the Dakotas, really possibly a pretty big line of storms that moves through parts of central parts of the Dakotas moving toward northern Minnesota. But the whole pattern's active, lots of thunderstorms, basically where we saw the atmosphere destabilizing. If we let the NAM model predict out where we're going to add up all this precipitation, here it is. You can see how the model's picking up on those storms, hit or miss. And that's what basically the name of the game is going to be through the next 10 days. Some of you are going to get a lot of thunderstorm activity and plenty of precipitation. Some are going to get missed. We have now moved into that summertime convective time period where this is what things look like. Now, if we look at it all in aggregate, I want to compare two models. On the left, this is the operational ECMWF, the European model. On the right, this is the operational GFS, or the US model. Now, both models have picked up on a very similar feature, and I'm just going to draw it over here on the European model. And that is a large high-pressure system sitting here off of the southeast coast. We're working with a little tropical wave coming through parts of Cuba, and as it does so, it's going to be moving right up the east coast of the United States. Now, as it does, we're going to be hitting cornfields, cotton fields, tobacco fields, peanut, all of those crops that we grow right here along the, basically from Georgia all the way up to parts of Virginia, so through the Carolinas. Very, very wet week ahead of us over in this section of the country, and both models agree on that. What the models don't agree on? Well, the US model, the GFS, is much wetter into this area than the European model. Now, both have showers and storms, but the US model is trying to keep a little bit wetter. We can also see coming back over into this part of Kansas, eastern Colorado, where I'm kind of drawing this backward C. The European model is drier than the US model. Now, both are not bringing much precipitation into the panhandles of Oklahoma and Texas and into far western Kansas. So they're both trying to keep that, at least the operational models are trying to keep that drier than other parts, but we will be getting some precipitation in there. And also, just due to general upper level dynamics, we could be seeing a drier pocket from eastern Texas up into Arkansas, back over to Louisiana through the next 10 days. So this is a pretty complicated picture. I wanted to show you all of it to you. If we look at those same two models, but now look at their ensemble members. So remember, we run these models multiple times. Here's what model agreement looks like. What we see here is that the US model has a pretty large section of the country looking at wet anomalies moving forward, especially getting back here into the Central Plains. It's picking up on a dry bias, that's really going to extending through parts of Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi. It's a little bit different when we look at that dry bias in the European model, which stretches all the way up into parts of Illinois. But both models are keeping this section of the country wet. So this is your active pattern we were discussing. You can also see the influence of that large plume of tropical moisture coming off of that weak tropical system coming out of the Gulf, really out of the Caribbean, and it's all going to be moving around this large high-pressure center sitting here off the coast. Now, what I want to show you in comparison to this is where we've got our drought. So our latest drought monitor came out at the end of last week. We do see we have some drought still sitting in the northern plains. A lot of this is residual from last year, but we have seen a one-class degradation over the last month in parts of North Dakota and Minnesota. Our drought is still very well established down here getting into the south central plains. We've even seen some droughts, one-class degradation over the last month in parts of Iowa, Illinois, and Missouri, but I expect to see a lot of that going away. Where I do see a drought really going away over the next 5 days is going to be the drought you see in the southeast. So I just want to kind of give you that bigger perspective on all of this. Now, as we kind of finish out this video, 3 quick hits around the world. First, or actually 4, let's go 4. Dry in Canada, Manitoba, getting over into Saskatchewan, of course, and then into Ontario. We see that the forecast by the long-range European model keeps that same area drier than average. Come down to South America, the last 30 days, very dry in Brazil's southern growing regions. We do see that over the next 15 days, near average precipitation, but remember the monsoon is ending, so near average precipitation is relatively dry compared to what they got months ago. Also, Argentina has been very wet over the last 30 days. They're expected to actually have a little bit drier time period coming up in the near term. North of the Black Sea, dry over the last 30 days, near average precip over the next 15. And finally, here in China, they've had a warm and wet spring for the most part. While it is going to be wetter in the northern growing regions, we are waiting for the Mayu front to come in. That's a monsoonal flow, which will arrive later on this month into June. So that's kind of your global snapshot of everything that's going on. So a lot to take in here, but I want to kind of give you my full perspective on it. But with that, I think I'll go ahead and wrap up this forecast video. We hope you look forward to Agrible's next ag forecast coming out on Thursday morning. Head to agrible.com to learn how you can get real-time agronomic and sustainability insights all at the touch of a button. Thank you and have a great week.